Good morning. Good morning. Wow, I don't know if this is a call to action for what the hell have I done with my life, and you're all here to do a little bit of a recollection and a little call to arms, but thank you for being here. This is amazing. In preparing for this talk, I had no idea what the hell to say, flat out. There's 50-odd years of experience, of joy, of memory, and of playing with Lego, apparently. But I'm here to talk about touch to a certain degree. And I'm so touched that all of you are here today. This is absolutely beautiful. When I look out and I see friends, family, colleagues, industry reps, I'm so delighted to see that there is a continuance to the relationships we built so early on. So thank you all for being here. John Keats wrote that touch has a memory, and I have a lot of memories, and going back in those memories is what I want to share with you as, well, go back to call to action, life lessons, touch points that actually made a difference. But being here today feels like home in so many ways. And yes, we were here day one when we started Creative Mornings over 12 years ago. The first chapter in Canada, it was the 8th chapter, I believe, in the world, and now you see there's over 230. And that's the intention, is to find out what is the recipe, what are those pieces we need to build, what is the process we need to establish so that we can actually create things that sustain themselves and continue the power of which they were intended to start, and to keep that going, whether we're present or not, and so that others can carry the torch and that energy can continue. I was born and raised in East Van, the East Side, and I've been living in Gastown for the last 13 years. Funnily enough, at kind of times with the beginning of Creative Mornings, so it's kind of nice to see that. I was a little late this morning because the commute was terrible. I live in Woodwards right there. So I'm going to share some of those memories we talked about, key touch points into some insights that have guided every step of my journey, regardless of the destination or the road traveled. So I want to thank you to my Creative Mornings family, my industry colleagues, and the communities present to share in a few thoughts of that today. And also thank you specifically to HCMA for partnering today. I have fantastic memories of working with an incredible bunch of multidisciplinary artists, and they truly are artisans. So putting a spotlight on myself to share how I got to where I am today felt like writing my own obituary. I don't know if this is a wake or the weirdest way to present a resume ever. But we're going to go through a few things. I've had a lot to do in various components and communities. There's so many things that I could cull from and pull from, and I reached out to some of my friends and industry colleagues about what they would like to actually hear from me. I talked to Daryl, I talked to Mark, I talked to Councillor Christine Boyle, who's here today. Wonderful people doing incredible work. And from that, a lot of it lent towards the personal side. So I have to admit, I'm a little shy in regards to sharing some of the things I'm going to share with you today, but I also feel that they are essential in appreciating what's necessary for all of us to be human and to truly tap into empathy, and to bring that forward to better ourselves and to learn from others and exchange that into the learning and growing and building to what you need to be better and to make our world a better place. I'm going to focus on a few of these items and just some things that have called out to say, what are we going to tap into? And they're quite disparate. Now, you go from a photographer to a chief of staff to a president to a vinyl records collector, and the Lego building is a hilarious story, which I'm happy to share on another time. But spoiler alert, if you go to the train station at Main and Terminal, you go in there, you might see a little Lego model of the train station. That's the beginning of the journey. So in order to appreciate where we are today, where I am today, what I want to do is take you on a little ride through yesterday. Okay, so we'll talk about today, yesterday, and then we're going to dive into tomorrow. So in order to provide you a bit of a roadmap for traveling your own creative journey, what I want to do is allow me to share 5 touch points that have shaped this path. And I'm going to drag along some of the life lessons I've learned. One of the things that I really appreciate is that when you're given knowledge and you turn that into wisdom through application, the obligation to share that is essential. And that's what I hope to achieve today. So, the road on this journey is a bumpy one. At times it's exciting, sometimes it's challenging, even painful, but it's always rewarding. This is the beginning of my biker career. It didn't go well. But like all of you, we get back up to those experiences, we remember them, we carry the scars of reminders of what we've done and what we've accomplished, so we can continue forward. So if you're ready, are you ready? Ready. Let's ride. So I've been accused of carrying a punk ethos into all I do, which kind of makes sense considering my formative years of growth and learning. That's me, 17, 18 years old, and for you Vancouverites that are of a certain vintage, you may or may not recognize that area as Yaletown. Right there is where Yaletown Brewery is today. A massive change to the area, and I totally miss those after-hour clubs where you would see the darkest version of jazz mixed with goth and death metal and punk and gay culture, because everything then was either country, classical, rock, or alternative. I qualify as alternative. So during this time, what did I learn? What are the life lessons? Number one in the 5 lessons we're going to share today is be true to your ethos. Find out what's important to you and maintain that. Charge it. It's your battery. Refuel accordingly. And then share the things you've learned. I learned that when you wear your armor on the outside, it creates space for you, but it also creates barriers. I learned that few people actually listen to the angry cry of a placard-carrying demonstrator going, "Down with systems and societies and to hell with you." It's a voice, and it has a duration, but it's usually just whisked away at a certain point. I learned that if you actually want to create change to systems, to cultures, you have to get inside the machine. And thankfully, genetics dropped the mohawk, and I was able to blend in with my fellow bald brethren and use that white privilege to get into a platform so you can have a voice and then get the hell out of the way so you can bring forward those that should be on that podium and get forward. So I may have lost my hair, but my fight for fairness and equity amongst those who need it most still absolutely rages. And this is me really angry right now. So you can blend in. Number 2, go deep. You need to commit yourself and you need to endure. For my midlife crisis, I took up marathon running. It was either that or a comb over and a Corvette. But I didn't have the hair for that, so I went with the marathon running. You learn a lot about yourself when you have that moment of recollection where you stop thinking about foot strike and breathing and just focus on going forward. The voices start to calm, and you get into a meditative state. I don't meditate, I tried. I'm horrible at it. But marathon running was the closest I got to it, and I missed that. So finding new ways to express and sink in and going deep comes through things like endurance. So go deep, and think about the points you make from that. Lots of dad jokes in this talk, by the way. Just gonna let you know right away. So the points are from literally needles glued into the tips of my mohawk to the needle of a record player. I love jazz. I love jazz vinyl. I love collecting that. I love sinking into the immersive experience of opening an album that's this big, not a button on a computer, reading the liner notes, reading the lyric sheets, looking at all of the cast and crew that were part of making that luxurious sound that you're appreciating. Taking your time to stop, pause, focus, and sink in. Going deep. Life's too fast. Life's way too fast. This talk is way too fast. There's so much we can share and talk about, so we're going to cram a lot in a few minutes. But the needles of a tattoo needle as well. It's going deep, but not so deep as to cause, well, it does cause a little bit of pain, I won't lie. But it goes just deep enough to maintain itself. And we'll talk about tattooing because that is something where it's saying I need to go just deep enough so I'm asking something to accept a foreign substance, repair itself and not reject it, and change itself forever. So the permanence of going deep goes a long way. So think about that. Commit yourself to something and go all the way. It's the smiles and the scars from our experiences that teach us so much. So I want to share some of these experiences. As a photographer, I was invited into a book, film, and exhibition project on tattoo. And actually, Aura is here somewhere. Aura was one of the photographers on that as well. And in this time, I got to meet an incredible amount of models and artists and fellow creatives. Before this project began, though, I was in North Carolina for the National Tattoo Association conference, and we were shooting interviews with artists, and we wouldn't interview an artist unless they had at least 25 years experience. And the gentleman on the left there is Lyle Tuttle, and you probably don't know him at all. You know, few people do. Lyle Tuttle passed away a couple years ago, but he was a huge influence on my understanding of what it's like to endure and to keep going. He's got an incredible tattoo museum in California, or under his name now, by the way. But we had some great conversations, and we talked about what it's like to collect memories and what it's like to use them as your own inner armor. We talked about that external armor. What about that inner armor? So you see he's heavily tattooed from neck to shin, but nothing exposed if you put on a suit. It's just someone who's present, and you don't judge them based upon that tattoo. Because we have biases. So I learned a lot about this project. I learned, you don't judge a book by its cover, and how to commit to long-term goals. The guy on the right is me. And during this project, I learned a lot about what it was that I was committing myself to with the idea of tattooing, and the stories we carry. And the story that is on my back starts with the deity of Kuan Yin, or Canon. The Japanese or Chinese is different. And it actually started as an Indian bodhisattva, as a male, and now went female. But she sits between heaven and earth, because on her way to transcendence, she heard the cries of those below and paused as the goddess of mercy. She later became to be known, because she refused to go any higher than what she was capable of helping others to do, to achieve. See, the idea of assistance, of mercy, to help, to support, to guide, to get into a certain position and get out of the way for others to climb, is the intention. There's so much more to the story of the tattoo. On the front, there's koi that are juvenile in spring, going down through cherry blossoms in that time. And the story of koi is on their way back in the fall, there's one particular story about the golden dragon. A koi went through a lot of challenges and went over the waterfall and turned into the Japanese dragon. And if you look very carefully, segue back to cheek, there's my ass. And on there's a dragon's head, but the tail asserts around, and she floats on this celestial dragon. If you look at a Japanese dragon, it contains a scale of koi, the tail of a serpent, the deer antlers, the lion's mane. Because as us, like that mythological creature, when we are at the end of our days, we are never the person we began as. We are always a culmination of all those we have met, the experiences we've had, and the joy and the scars we've built along the way to be better. So, I learned how to listen, once again, to not judge a book by its cover, and to commit to long-term goals. And I also never thought I'd be showing a few hundred people my ass. But, dad jokes, emphasis on but. Here we are in our own skin. I told you, it's not gonna get better. But we're here to talk about how touch comes through in the memories of touch, and that gentle caress and touch of the hand, and understanding what it's like to hold your child's hand in yours. That bond of parent and child is so strong, so powerful, so engaging. And during this photo session, I met a lot of models, like I said, and one was a gentleman by the name of Jody, and he had half of his face tattooed, not to mention the rest of his body. And now he's actually got a full face tattoo. And when I asked him, when we were interviewing, I said, "What's your favorite piece? What's your favorite tattoo?" And he opened his palm. And in there was what we see on the screen. And it was taken from an ink pressing of his child's hand, and said that no matter how far I am from my child, physically or emotionally, I know that I can always walk with his hand in mine. Never judge a book by its cover. Number 3, say hello, engage, communicate. Creative Mornings was wonderful for me to be able to meet so many incredible people. On the right there, I'm with Martin Jackson, a calligrapher, an incredible artist, and what he taught me was to slow the F down. I got it back into cursive handwriting. Because of him, I own pens, ink, and thank you notes. After his talk, I spent 100 days, once a day, sending a thank you letter in cursive handwriting to people that I've met through life to thank them. Now here's a question for you. If you were to do the same, who would be the first person you send a thank you to? Your mom. Yeah. Come on. It's not that hard. All right. So ice-breaking, engaging, enjoying. Now on the left, you might recognize this gent. Gord Down Jr. from the Tragically Hip. So I took this photo at a concert bloody ages ago. And longer story, I actually saw them play at the Town Pump here in Gastown way back when. Way back when. So I'm aging myself right now, but wow. Nirvana played the Town Pump way back when. An incredible sight. And I'm going to segue back into jazz, because in this area, on a Thursday, you can go to Is That French, Poorhouse, or upstairs at Water Street Cafe and hear live music. Man, I missed that during COVID. I don't know about you. So much talent. So this is funny, because this was back to photography and just plain saying hello and the power of just greeting and welcoming. So I was shooting a wedding. I can't believe I said that. I was doing it a favor for a model that I work with a lot, so I was shooting her wedding. And the longer story is that I refused to do it unless I could just show up tipsy and ride with the limo driver. All in, it was fun. So we're at the hotel in the lobby doing photography, and the Tragically Hip are there, waiting for their car to take them in for sound check. I had no idea that the bride and groom were massive fans of the Tragically Hip. So I said, well, let's go say hi. And they said, no, we couldn't possibly. Well, I was already on my way. Say, hey guys, how you doing? Oh, we're good. Hey, these two are getting married. You can tell by the outfits. And I'm shooting them. You can tell by the cameras. And we would love to get a picture of you with them. No problem. We're in. They're chatting back and forth. Next thing you know, they've got passes. They're going to the gig. And they say, would you like a pass as well? I said, sure, why not? They said, well, looks like you like photography. Do you want to join the press pit and get in there and just join the photographers that are shooting for the various papers and magazines and publications? I had done that before many times. But I thought, I don't have to do it for an actual gig. I can just go and have fun. I'm in. They had to throw me out of the pit afterwards, because you only get like the first 3 songs or something to photograph them, because then they get sweaty and gross and whatnot. But that was fun. But all of that started by just plain saying hello. The power of saying hello and taking the time to engage. I want you to think on that. I want you to think about the amount of times that people came up to you and said hello, and the incredible relationships you built from that. Business, lovers, dates. What else can you possibly do in life? Partnering on creative projects, suppliers, demanders. You're always going to have something which is gained by just plain saying hello. And the power of that simple, innocuous word that we sometimes just marry with how you doing, and we half listen to the answer. But saying hello is amazing. Let's go back to that parent-child aspect and the power of hearing hello from your child for the first time. When you hear them speak their first words, and that's one of them. I know I will never forget my daughter's first words to me. My daughter said to me, hello. My name is Amber. I'm 31 years old. I was adopted in 1984, and I've been seeking my birth family, and I think you're my father. Hello. That began an incredible relationship. And everybody in the picture's in a really good place, thankfully. And it was magic. And all of that came from a simple hello and Instagram messaging. So who knew? So it is never too late to say hello, and it's never too early. It's my daughter Amber. After I met her in San Francisco 7 months later, I met my grandson. So I'm glad I got that family shit over with quick. Oh, kids, I tell you, get a university degree, leave me alone, we're good to go. Number four, step up. Step up, lead, and then share. Leadership is a privilege, and it's a burden. It is all those things at one time. It is so challenging. I need to step up and into challenges and opportunities. Being the face or the voice of a group you're representing can be totally intimidating. Being behind the scenes, actioning so much of what a group is doing can be intimidating as well. But it's also incredibly rewarding, knowing that you are evoking change to better the world around you in your chosen sector or community. As Chief of Staff for the Squamish Nation, the Squamish Ohlmeoch, as President of the International Council of Design, as President of Designers of Canada, the Design Professionals of Canada, previously GDC, one of the partners of CreativeMornings. It's difficult to discuss leadership without understanding the challenges and the weight that carries, and how that must be shared. And also that sinking feeling like, why me? Why am I here? And I know all of you are here simply because you're trying to figure out what the hell the connection is between Lego and the Chief of Staff of the Squamish Nation. So am I. I was ready to grab a seat and listen and going, how the hell did that happen? But it happens from being present. It happens from listening. Listen. It happens from paying attention and listening to what others are saying about you and stepping up and into it. If you only do what you know, you can never grow. And we are constantly learning, all of us, all the time, no matter where we are. You always want to elevate, and you do that by falling off your bike, getting back up, and doing it again, by being present. I did a talk a while ago with a group, Creative Pulse, a local group in town, and I did a talk on this. They strictly asked me to talk about leadership and imposter syndrome. And I thought, great, that'll be a 2-minute talk, because I don't know. How do you manage imposter syndrome? But through that talk and listening and learning, there's 2 key things I want to talk about in regards to leadership and imposter syndrome. And one is that never let your confidence exceed your ability. Just do the work. No matter how hard the work is, do it. Get busy. Your abilities increase. Your experiences increase. You challenge yourself. You go. There's that tricycle philosophy of experience, context, and appreciation. We have experiences every day. Every single day we're experiencing something. But unless you take the time to sit back, put it into context, and truly appreciate what it's done for you. If it was a bad thing, well, don't do it again. If it was a good thing, press repeat. But take the time to notice your experiences and apply. The second thing is to remind yourself is that you're in a position of leadership or role or output because people believe in you. How dare you deny their ability to believe in you? You know, they're holding you up. Now, when you're in there, that awesomeness that is you that other people see and that you start to believe in yourself, there's an inner saboteur that's just as equal, and that nemesis is dragging you back. You're talking yourself out of all the things that people are looking at you to do. So just calm those voices, and focus on the positives, and rise. So learn, listen, and give back graciously and share. And I love the line that if you know you're giving, you're doing it wrong. You should just be sharing. So I want to share a couple of quick lessons in regards to some of the positions I've had. I learned more in a few years of working with the Squamish Nation, in those few years than I did in my 50 years of being alive before that, flat out. And that's reprehensible. It's actually unacceptable. We all need to be doing more in our systems to be sharing the knowledge and the wisdom which is already available, readily available, and to be tapping into that power and giving that power back. Some of my takeaways, which are super challenging, I can't lie. You know, that there was my mandate was to set up systems and service provision. It was an incredible design project, quite frankly, to help support change and growth management. I oversaw the transition from the old governance model through the election referendum law into a new governance model. When I started, the position was brand new, didn't exist. I had a staff of 3. When I began, there was 16 counselors, which voted for the 2 co-chairs. And T.L. Talot was the one, and Josh were the 2 co-chairs, and T.L. Talot, Kristen Rivers, was my boss, and the one that I worked with the most. And then there was an election, and then her brother became leader, Hal Salem. So family is omnipresent in Indigenous culture, whether it's in ceremony, politics, discussions, celebrations, it's omnipresent. And I hope we all remind ourselves of that, whether it's your blood family or the family you've chosen. One week, I remember one week I looked at my calendar on the old Sunday night, what you're in store for Monday morning, and in that one week, in there was listing I was a steering committee member of Yusnawas, which was a project overseeing the investigation of St. Paul's Residential School. I was dealing with the Archdiocese of BC, speaking with the Prime Minister's office, and dealing with a number of other files on my desk. As Chief of Staff, the files on your desk aren't there because they're good things. You pass that off to your staff to take care of. And in that time, I realized, wow, there's a lot going on. And people are trusting me to manage a lot of these aspects along the way. And the mandate was to create the systems and the infrastructure and the people to support a Squamish Nation Chief of Staff, which should be the case, and absolutely is the case now. I have a dear friend in that position right now, and a friend I know I'll have for life. The idea that we help where we can and we get out of the way. Like I said, I started with a staff of 3. When I left, there was a completely different governance model and over 28 people that I had hired and created multiple divisions and teams to support. And when I stepped away, even more came in. An incredible governance model supported by an incredible team and incredible leaders. So 2 other things I want to share with you that I learned by being with the Squamish Nation is never interrupt an elder, right? How many times have we overspoken our grandparents or our parents, but you never interrupt an elder? If you do, one of 2 things is going to happen. That elder is going to chastise you for interrupting them and teach you that it's a way of absorbing and learning and living from that person's experiences. And they'll chastise you so you can course correct, and you don't do that in the future. The second thing that could happen, which is worse, they stop talking. When you've cut off a pipeline of knowledge and wisdom, you've hurt yourself and your community in turn, because your job is to learn and share. The last thing I'll share quickly, more of a, not a trivia piece, but definitely a knowledge piece, and that is 7 is not a number sometimes. A few giggles, you're getting it? If you see how Squamish is spelt, there's that 7 in the middle, right? It's not a sound, it's not a character, it's an opportunity to pause. It's called a glottal stop. And I remember working with the nation and through a language teacher and language speaker that talked about the Squamish language as already existing long before the Squamish people did. For example, the word for crow is skah. That means it was already there introducing himself to you. And the idea that the written language is an imperfect recording of the beauty of the language is that it needs to be heard. And when you hear it, it's powerful. And then we hear a lot of the, well, it's so hard to read, and I see all these characters, and I don't get it. It's not phonetic. I'm not understanding it. You know, that's fine. But that exists in so many other languages, too. And it's up to us to make the effort. If you can say Chopin, Tchaikovsky, Dostoevsky, you can say Squamish. Now repeat after me. Uh-oh. That's a glottal stop. Squamish. It's just a pause. Take the time. Learn and share. Serving as president is an unusual leadership role as well. I served as president of CAPIC, of local and national with the Design Professionals of Canada, and president-elect and president of the International Council of Design. And I'm currently the past president of the International Council of Design. Totally in those top-level positions, never minding other positions, I've spent over 15 years in those leadership positions, all of which are volunteer. But every one of those minutes and opportunities and experiences have shaped my career, my advocacy, my policy work, and has created the person I am today, strictly by saying hello and showing up and stepping up. Those opportunities are in itself a master's degree in diplomacy and community building. There's opportunities provided by the foundation for much of my work, like I've said already. And I've learned some takeaways. The world is really quite small. And when you show up at those levels of engagement, the same people are there, the same organizations usually. There's a few that flow back and forth, add and subtract. But they're all there, typically, and they all have the same issues. The one thing I noticed, though, the difference is when you show up and arrive out of your home context into an international context or somewhere else, everyone gets together and they share the problems quickly, and they share their solutions. And there's a collaborative, co-conspiratorial effort to get to a better place together. It's a wonderful learning. In respect to design and the sharing of ideas, I also learned that design is a very young profession, really only finding itself with the Industrial Revolution. And that's where producers started calling out to us as creatives. Typically, craftspersons before are now becoming specialized. We took those who were crafting tools and industrial pieces, and now they are now industrial designers. Graphic designers were helping communicate messaging, brand, type. I've learned along the way there's a certain professionalism, and there was also a call to action that was dictated to the creatives by the producers and manufacturers, creating a massive amount of consumption. I learned that we must define what it means to be a design professional, articulate obligations, and further develop a professional standards of conduct, which is why organizations like GDC or Design Professionals of Canada and the International Council of Design exist. Because if you are a creative, and how many of you identify as being a creative, designer, artist, Every one of you have benefited from the work of these advocacy groups, whether you're directly engaged or not. And it's up to all of us as an industry to support that. And as influential as we are in creating modern messages, products, spaces, and services, so are we complicit in the negative impacts of modern consumption. So to establish a global appreciation of design professionalism, a robust ethical design culture is required for the benefit of our communities and to enable design to achieve its potential to improve the quality of life for all. I have learned it is time to change the relationship between producers, designers, and end users. Instead of being the servants of producers, designers better serve by being the ambassadors of the end users, using their capacities to better respect long-term needs, cultural heritage, and the environment. Step up. I better stop there because I can talk about design professionalism for hours, so honestly, take the mic away. So getting close to the end there. Number 5, and our final piece in the puzzle of the recipe of how to live a creative life. Have fun. Absolutely have fun. Have fun and share. Oh, sorry. I'm not there yet. I'm in mentoring. Edit, clip, begin. Mentoring. Mentoring is that sharing component. So all that you've learned and all that you've done, it's time to share that. I heard a great piece that said that, once you've achieved all that you've intended to do and got to that place where you've always dreamt or imagined of being at, it's your obligation to send the elevator back down. You didn't get there on your own. You got there on the backs and necks of others. So thank them for that and compliment for that and include them in the process of sharing. So mentoring is a great way to do that. Now, knowing as little as you know about me right now, how many of you would like me to mentor you? Okay? It's a good show of hands. Don't be shy. Shove them in the sky. Step up. Be present, right? Go deep. Now, of those hands that were up, how many of you are currently mentoring someone? You blew my talk. That is awesome. That is awesome. You have no right to ask someone to mentor you until you're actually sharing yourself. I don't care where you are in your career in life. If you're a first-year student, you remember signing up the first day. If you're fourth term, there's a first term that could use your knowledge and your wisdom. So share, always, all the time. I used to target a mentor annually in an area that I wanted to be at. And then I got to that place where I thought, well, how do I challenge that? Because if all I'm doing is cloning or repeating what others are doing, how do we shake that up? So now every year I get 2 mentors. One is 1,000% left brain, the other is 1,000% right brain. Because when you share what you're doing on a daily basis with, let's say, an installation artist or the CFO of a law firm, you get very different perspectives and lenses on that. And that is valuable. So take that with you. All right, now number 5. The final piece is to have fun. Have fun. If you're doing something and it feels wrong, it probably is. You need to trust your gut. And then you need to feed that gut. So eat the meals, drink the drinks, share with friends, make new friends, engage, communicate, because having fun is a reward for going deep, doing the work, enduring, and sharing out loud. So, in summary, how about a little bit of a recipe for living a creative life? I threw this together because Mark told me to. And that is to summarize the 5. Be true to your ethos. Go deep, commit, endure. Say hello. It's so easy. Just say hello. And when someone says hello to you, you know how to respond. Engage. Step up. If you're given a platform and an opportunity, you step up. But I also want to give you the reminder that you should put an expiry date on that and get out of the way of someone else that should be in that spot, because there's always someone better than us. Get them in there. And have fun, because that's how you get from today to tomorrow and where you wish to be. So now, to finalize, speaking of tomorrow, some of you might be asking, what's next for me? Or not. I know I asked. This is one of those moments like self. Okay, we'll skip that. So what's next for me? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I'm happy to share a sneak peek at what is happening with tomorrow. So I'm actually delighted that my partner and friend Greg Durrell is here. somewhere? Raise your hand. So Greg Durrell, you might know, is one of the most talented creatives in this country. Has led a number of initiatives and projects that still shine today and last. We first met really and started talking when he designed Canada, the film. And if you haven't seen it, please see Design Canada. It's a wonderful film. If you're an educator, get that in your schools. We need to stop teaching American design and start looking at what our heritage and classics are. So from film production to brand strategy to whatnot, Greg and I started working on a few things afterwards. And we have a wonderful project here in Gastown, you might have seen it, called Vinyl Records. And it began as just a community outreach, sharing with friends. We were working it out, and we just thought, what the hell? It wouldn't be fun to brand a record shop. And we did. And so from there, that kind of built into a longer lasting friendship. And you are the first ones to know that later this month we'll be officially announcing our new agency. So if you'll bear with me for a couple of seconds, I just want to show you a little glimpse at tomorrow. So thank you. And thank you, Greg. So consider that an early Valentine's Day gift. More to share later. So to close, find your ethos, those earlier origin stories of who you are, what makes you who you are, what family influence you have, the friends you built along the way, the lessons you've learned, the scars you've built. And make sure that you're understanding what is important to you and challenge yourself. Find your ethos, the work you are best at, and bring it front and center to help make our world a better place. Thank you, and hello.
First one over here. Pardon me.
Hey, Jonathan. Thanks for the talk. How do you decide what's next between planning what's next versus kind of letting the universe, connections and referrals saying hey, we're considering you for chief of staff? What's the balance of that in your career because you've done so much?
Yeah, great question. I think we start to establish a subconscious go, no-go criteria. And the more time you sit with it, you start to appreciate what's important to you. And I would suggest that, as the years go by, the qualifications start to increase as to what's important. But in particular at this time, with my time with HCMA and my time with my own studio and my time with advocacy, I swore that I would never do work again unless it was meaningful. I guess the question is how do you define meaningful? And that comes from your own personal ethos. So for me, it was a matter of sitting in that, taking some time in between. And I've actually started to practice between major gigs is to practice what I'm calling intermittent retirement. Spend some time, spend a few months of just doing nothing but just, in my case, listening to jazz and drinking wine, but also contemplating the idea of what's important to you and what's next. And in that time, you start to listen, and you start to listen intently. And the last thing I'll add to that is one thing I've established is healthy boundaries. When you pause and reflect and you look back, and on that note, it's I think we're constantly trying to chase the horizon line, right? We're always thinking what's that North Star? We're always constantly chasing for the horizon line, which we should know is inaccessible. We'll never get there. Well, unless you're a flat earther, but that's another story for another day. But what we don't do is take the time to pause, turn around, and reflect on how far we've come. And so each time you reevaluate. So consider it a bit of a mental process of what's your 10-year plan, your 5-year plan, and your 1-year plan, but reminding yourself that every year you need to bump it forward a year. Does that help?
I had a clarifying question first, but the clarifying question is just what's the tattoo project or the book you mentioned earlier?
It is a book that exists. It's all right. It was an exhibition, which was a photo exhibition, which was great, and the intention was to be a film project, which never saw the light. However, the experiences from it, like a lot of things, it's like the editing room floor. There's so much glory and incredible talent and pieces that are on the editing room floor that don't quite rise to the finished product. But it was a fun project, and it was a great opportunity. But it was literally just called The Tattoo Project, which started as a working title, and I think that's kind of where it landed. I'm actually not sure how far the book publication went. I know it was produced and distributed, and there are some very talented shooters in there and some incredible photography. You know, Aura was one of them, Wayne Herkel, and a number of other local photographers, which are fantastic.
Cool. I have one other question
Okay.
from the Zoom chat, which is, what is the best way to find a mentor in the creative field, and how do you convince them to take you under their wing?
Oh, man. That's a great question. First of all, creatives are egotistical. Get in there and pander. Just like, you are so amazing. I can't believe the work you did here. What that must have been like. I can only imagine. I dream of being in your position one day. And in that, you start to develop the conversation. Believe it honestly, it does work. And also, I'm also going to qualify that as a secondary benefit. That's also how you should job hunt. If you're looking for a job as a creative, don't wait for an ad to come up for a position. It's too late. Go talk to the people that are in the position you want, because they'll need a successor one day, and they know all the people that also do what they do. And they'll know those other opening opportunities. And if they remember the way that you gerrymandered and totally stroked their ego, they're going to remember you and offer you that advice. Hey, I was just talking to this person about this, and suddenly occupations are filled before they're even advertised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before I pass the mic, this is a true story. I was a director at HCMA. We were planning to expand creative services into this multidisciplinary path that we were. Where'd Daryl go? I think I'm sitting in the seat. Anyway, and one day, basically, the phone rang. It was probably an email. I don't know. Jonathan, or maybe he made us go for lunch. And Jonathan literally said to Daryl and I, "If you don't hire me, you will fail. You must have someone like me to lead this charge." And Daryl looked at me and he goes, "Is that true?" And I'm like, it sounds convincing. That's true. Is that not true? You said that.
That is reasonably true.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Hello.
My pleasure. Hello.
I really appreciate your entire talk. And as a fellow community builder, I've found that throughout a lot of the building that I've done, it's been really difficult to, as you said, step in and then let others lead. Luckily, I've been fortunate to have that opportunity now, but I found that a lot of the work that I'm trying to do has been as sporadic as your board that you had there. How have you been able to find the narrative threads and to still maintain your ethos, but take on new creative projects and still have time for yourself?
Yeah, because it's exhausting doing what we do, isn't it? And it's erosive. It breaks you down, it tears you up, you get emotional, you find how thin you can be. I don't mean physically, but being present requires a lot of energy. So I like the way you frame that, and how do you take time for yourself. And as the tattoo might show, I'm a bit of an extremist, or marathon running. The idea is that you take something and you do it 180%, and then you should also do the same for yourself. The answer I'll give you is actually an answer that was given to me when I started talking to people about this and saying, like, what's happening? Like I feel exhausted, yet there's so much more I need to do. And forgive me, I've forgotten the name of the author. I think it's Chase Hill, and a book called Healthy Boundaries. And it's a great read, a very quick read, but one that has sat in so many different places in regards to saying no. Like there's in improv, there's an act that goes, yes and. Yes and is how you end up volunteering way too much. And I saved the F-bomb there. But when you're drained, you need to put that same energy, effort, and focus into yourself, and valuing that, and making sure that other people value it for you. Now, instead of people saying, hey, I need you to do this, now it's like, oh, what are you doing for yourself? Tell me more about what it's like to, search vintage jazz vinyl records, get dusty, dirty fingers, touch. Ooh, callback. But I hope that answers your question. But I think the big thing is that all of us need to set healthy boundaries. We need to learn to say no and mean it, and to not apologize for it. Because all you're doing is focusing. If you try to be all things for all people, you get really thin real quick. But if you focus, and that focus can change and shift, and you can change lanes, that's all right. God knows I did it. But having that singular focus and following that light is going to be very beneficial.
Okay, I think we have time for one more.
Or none?
Jonathan, how many times over the years, how long have we known each other?
Well, my chronological memory is bad because if I remember correctly, I feel older.
And remember when we met each other, we hated each other.
Oh, God, yeah. Mark and I.
What a pompous.
We have a mutual friend, and for at least a year, she'd been telling both of us, "Oh my God, I can't believe you don't know Mark. He's amazing. He's just like you." You know, we're bald. He's a creative. He's got his own studio. He's this, that, and the other thing. I said, "Okay, fine." So my studio, I do this purge. I was selling everything in the studio, and you and your partner Ben were looking for stuff, an air conditioner, I think, and they came over to the studio and buying stuff, and Mark is Mark, so he went like right upstairs where he wasn't supposed to go and started going through my books that he's not supposed to do, and started, "Well, you're into design and stuff." And I go, "Yeah," and we started talking, and we left, and I said to Helen, I said, "I never want to see that man again." And we've been best friends ever since.
And how many times in those 2+ decades, on a Sunday evening, when I've asked you to do something, have you said yes?
Probably none,
0. Why is that?
because I make that time for me and family.
Right. That's his time with his wife. I keep asking, and you keep saying no. Nope, I made bolognese. Nope, we're listening to jazz. Nope, it's Nicole time.
It's a slow cook day too. You can spend Sunday morning at the Church of Granville Island, and you find what's fresh, and you menu plan, and then you just cut vegetables all day and slow cook. That's a Sunday. That's it.
Sounds like you have your life together.
Nope, complete mess, hot mess.